Hi, and welcome to our tutorial for our Highland cow. I'm using a 12-inch board here, guys, and I've covered it with buttercream, so I can stick my first layer of cake onto the board. The cakes I'm using today are 7-inch cakes times 2. They are a vanilla round cake. This is a new recipe I've used. I was trying the new recipe out because this is just for the tutorial. And they're quite firm. So as you can see, I am cutting some of the cake off because I want to use the bottom layer as a prop, you would say, for the top layer. I want to balance the top layer on top enough to give us a 3D look to our cake, like so. I'm trying to keep the top cake off of the board, so the cow's chin will be up off of the board. Make sure it's nice and balanced, nice and flat, that it doesn't look awkward, it doesn't look as though it's going to fall off, and if need be, flatten it a bit more and by taking another piece off of the cake underneath. After this, we're going to check and double check and get it into a place that we feel is comfortable with. Now, these cakes, sculpted cakes, sometimes we cut off all the sides and sometimes we don't. It depends on the structure. If you leave the sides on, obviously it's going to give it a bit more strength, not so soft. But today we're going to cut off some of the sides but leave some on. So I'm taking my buttercream and we're going to pop it in between the cakes. Now usually at this stage I would add buttercream with jam. There's no need to pipe it on. I'm not being too fussy with my buttercream today because it's for the tutorial. But it's enough I'm putting on to stick our top cake to the bottom cake, like so. Now I've got my iPad there. You can have an iPad with pictures of the piece that you're doing, or you're going to have a sheet printed out. Now I'm looking at the shape of his nose, the shape of the nose of the cow, and deciding what I'm going to do. And at the back there I want to sit the horns. I think that's going to be too low, so we will add on cake, and you'll see in a little bit. So I'm marking with my knife roughly where I want to cut the cake pieces off. Now you can do this more in line with each other and everything if you want or if need be, but on this cake it's going to be covered in fondant here, so it doesn't have to be absolutely precise at this point. And there we go, we've got 2 pieces cut off, and of course it cuts right through to the bottom cake as well. Just push back any bits you think's maybe coming off or breaking off but you'd like to keep. So the pieces we just cut off are going to be put back on behind the top layer of cake to hold up the horns. So don't throw them away. I'm just checking on my diagram again on my iPad. And now you cover the whole cake with buttercream. Here we have the fondant I'll be using today. I've got a caramel colour fondant for the main body. This part is going to be for the nose. It's caramel mixed with some white fondant to give a marbling effect. Then we have a round ball of black fondant, which is going to be the eyes. And then we're going to take our caramel pieces. I've got 2 larger balls, and they are going to be the ears. They're nice and soft. And then we've got 2 smaller pieces of caramel coloured fondant, and they're going to be the eye sockets. I'm also going to have more fondant made than this. This is the grey fondant, marbled. So I took some black fondant with white and mixed it in together, and this is the colour you would end up with. That's for the horns. So here we go. We've taken the pieces that we cut off, and I've put 2 of the pieces, this is the second piece, back on to the back of the head, and we buttercream them on. Now this tutorial is quite an easy sculpt, and I picked this one because there is a little bit of sculpting, but not too much. It's not any dowels and things holding things up, except for the horns. It's a good one to cover up mistakes if you make any with all the fondant here. Now, I'm not going to put on a full cover of fondant over the top. Because we're doing so much here, I felt we definitely do not need to put a full cover of fondant first. Okay, we're going to do eye sockets. I'm rolling out the caramel coloured fondant. And what you're aiming to do is to get it nice and smooth and no cracks. And I'm going to try and have a pointy ends. I'm going to half this long snake here. And then we're going to try and get a point at one side especially, and a little point at the other. Like so. And all you do is place it on your cake in a circle with the pointy bits coming in towards the centre. Now, as you can see, I've added 2 pieces of cake on the top of the cake as well, which didn't actually get videoed, but I thought this would be better for our fringing of the cow's hair. You can put this on or you can leave it off. It's not a necessity. You could, if you wanted, just build it up with more fondant here. Or you could put a thicker piece of fondant there if you feel you haven't any more cake pieces left. So we do exactly the same on the other eye. Point to point, make a wee circle, and the pointy bits go in towards the centre. Now, normally I would do this with a far thicker piece and blend it in slightly to the cake. But because I'm trying to demonstrate and show for beginners, we're going to do this bit by bit, building it up. I'm just patting it down, making sure that it's quite firm onto the buttercream and it's sticking. We didn't use any water or edible glue because the buttercream there is nice and soft yet and is taking the fondant well. So then we take another piece of caramel coloured fondant. By the way, this is just Superstore bought fondant. You can see it above the cake there. This is a Tesco make. Not advertising for Tesco, but Oh no, next we're going to do the eyeballs. So nice circle balls. Make sure they're nice and soft and smooth. Just roll them in your hands, and then we're going to half the ball. And half each goes into the sockets. So the Tesco fondant is perfectly fine for this. I coloured all the fondant myself. I didn't buy it, but you can buy ready mixed coloured fondant. But I tend to mix my own so I can get the exact colour that I'm after. It is harder work, more work, but sometimes worth it, unless you can find exact colour that you want. Some of the fondant we will be using Tylo powder in as well. So we're taking more of our caramel colour. I did do a Highland cow standing on 4 legs before. You've probably seen it maybe on the page. And he's slightly lighter than this one, but I've actually got a Highland cow along the road from me at my house, and he's quite a dark caramel. So I decided to do the dark caramel, and then we're going to lighten parts on top of his hair, which you'll see as we go along. So that's our second layer of eye socket. As I said, you could easily put one thicker layer, but if you're not sure, do it bit by bit. This was the first time doing this cake as well, and I thought it turned out pretty well for a nice quick couple of hours cake. And maybe get a nice price for it. You could do any animal's face with this. We maybe try some more animals at a later date. Or you could do a normal cow with bigger ears without the horns. Endless opportunities. So I'm taking another piece of the caramel fondant and placing it at the top part of the back of the eye, because the top socket part's always a little bit higher than the bottom. We're not really going to see the eyes, but it was just a demonstration of how to do it, and they have to be there anyway. Most cows have got the eyes covered in here. I don't know how they see where they're going, but we are going to leave one eye open and showing, and the other eye is going to be mostly hidden. So I'm taking my pointy tool. This is my favourite tool. And we're going to put the point into the centre of the corner of the eye and pull it out into the eye and pull forward. And this gives you more of the shape of the eye, what animals' eyes are like. Patting it down, just make sure everything's quite secure. Now, this is our nose. So we've got our marbled fondant. Now remember, I took white fondant with a piece of the caramel. I mixed them in together and it went this marbly colour. It just gives you more texture and you won't have to paint the nose too much if you needed to at all. So a little bit of edible glue goes on the bottom of it, just for extra security this time, because it will be like hanging on the edge of the cake. It will sit more forward than this eventually. And we're just making sure everything's nice and smooth, and we're going to make 2 holes. One hole on the right and one hole on the left. Now we're going to do a wee bit of shaping, because whole nostrils are not just round. So they go round and then a straight line out the side. Round and a straight line out the side. And you can make your nostrils a little bit bigger, the holes, and match them up. There we go. Just making sure everything is quite secure. And you can see it's not wobbling, it's not falling off. Don't press too hard in case you push down on the cake. Good. So we're going to take some of the caramel fondant here again, and we're going to put it over the mouth area. So roll it out. Always check with your picture, remember, that you're following the guidelines on it. This is a first cover of the mouth. We will be using the lighter fondant ahead. This is just to give a bit of structure onto the mouth, keep it safe, and attach the nose to it. So slip it on. It doesn't need edible glue because that buttercream is quite soft yet. Gently pat it into place. Take our tool and blend it slightly, the nose in with the bottom part. Always go and check with your diagram, your pictures that you have, that you're on the right tracks, that the nose looks how it should sit. I felt as though it should come a little bit more forward, which I do pull it a little bit forward. First of all, blend it in a little bit, just stick it down. I do actually paint a little bit of his nose later on. I don't show that in the film, but it was just to make it look a little bit more cow-like. But you don't have to because it has got marbling on it. But sometimes it's good to colour inside the nostrils to make them darker at least. Here's our horn. Now this was covered in fondant. It's a wooden dowel and I covered it in fondant, and we're going to place it at the back, sort of top of his head. Now the fondant for this one did have some tile in it, so we could keep the pointy bits sticking up. I thought I put this into the video of me adding the fondant on to the horn, but obviously I've missed it out. We'll keep rolling the film and we'll see maybe if it's anywhere along, and you'll see it being made. If not, I will try and find it and add it onto the end of the film. So we put the horn on, make sure that it's straight as you can get it. Now we could put the horn in two separate pieces, but to be easy for this beginner tutorial, I thought it was better to add it on in one piece. Okay, we're going on to the ears now. So we have two pieces of the caramel fondant. I make a little dent in the middle. You don't have to do this either. It just gives the ear a little bit of shaping, and we press it down. And it just makes the ear a little bit thinner in the middle. I need it thicker around the sides because I want to make some hair. We take another tool, another pointy tool. This is the tool I favour the most for making animal hair scores in the fondant. I'm just softening the fondant for myself now because it's working it and making it nice and soft, nice and shiny, nice and smooth. If your fondant is hard or not pliable enough, when you make the scores in your fondant, it's going to make bubbly bits and not so nice bits. You need it nice and smooth. That's me smoothing it out again there, as you can see. As you can see. So one side of the ear's got to be flat, then the other side sticks out. Just checking that's going to look. Yep, that should be fine. Again, the ears, try and get them as close to likeness as you can, but again, they're going to be covered in hair, or they are going to be hairy, so you're not really going to go, oh, we've got one ear bigger than the other, unless they're massively different in size. So we take our little sculpting tool and we're going to mark our hair. So we score through the fondant, all going the same way. right off the edges. Okay. There you go. Like so. After we do one side, we're going to flip it over and do the back side, which I actually forget to do on the other ear, but it'll be fine. Flip it over, whoops, and score the other side. Like so. Take it back. I'm going to redo a few bits on this side to make some deeper. And then we're going to get our edible glue, or, oh no we're not, we're going to do the other ear. Forgot about that. We're going to get the other ear and do exactly the same on this side. So get it nice and soft, nice and smooth, nice and pliable. Flatten it out, do a little dent in the middle. Nice and smooth. One end is straight and the other end is out. Take our tool and score. Okay, so next we're going to take our water or edible glue and we're going to do round the sides. That's going to be onto the cake. You can put some on the horn as well if you want. I'm going to use horn to actually lean the ear on slightly. First of all, we're going to make dents into the side of the cake. There is at the other side already. I'm demonstrating this side. You don't need to cut. You can use your fingers and just push softly the cake into itself. So I'm putting some edible glue or water on the sides. Or you can attach some, put some glue onto the horn as well. Now I'm not using sticks or anything, it's fine. Voila. I'm going to push it down slightly. You can play around with it. And then we're going to take edible glue onto the horn of the other one. As I said, you can do that as well. Just don't have it swimming in water or edible glue. You're best to have it damp, but not lots and lots, because it'll just slip off. But if you haven't got enough, it's not going to stick. So exactly the same again. Excuse me. Just double checking both of them. See, they're quite secure. Okay, so we have horns, ears, eyes, nose and mouth. And under the mouth you can make a little bump underneath his nose, underneath it, to, with your fingers, pushing in the fondant, and it'll make a lip for his mouth. So we're going to start now covering the whole cake in fondant here. So I'm going to show you putting on some of it and then we jump forward, because there's no point watching the whole thing. So we roll out our fondant, like so. And we're going to make sure it's smooth again. There's no tylo in this. It's just the fondant with the colour through it. And we'll take our pizza cutter or a fondant wheel. And just cut off any extra parts. I'm going to make a line because animals have got a line on their muzzles, noses. Anyway, it's a guideline for where the hair splits the hairline. And just always keep checking that it's there. Also keep checking that you're following whatever cow or animal you're copying. Always check. So we're going to cut off any excess parts I don't think we need. They would have been fine left. As I said, don't worry if anything's not the same size or anything because there's so much fondant here going on. Just checking the size. It should be fine. Your eye will start guiding you once you get used to doing this. So I'm taking my pointy tool again. And this time I'm doing waves because a cow's hair is sometimes a bit wavy. Keep going out the sides. Now I want it to drape onto the board because I like that. I don't cut it round. Now you can make some folds on the nose at the top part so it makes it more bulkier looking and doesn't look flat. And now we're going to do the same to the other side. And you'll see I've purposely done this one, but you can see why it doesn't matter what length or shape that you use for this hair. It doesn't have to be precise, it's your cake, you can do what you want. Nobody's going to say anything that it's not the same or because hair isn't. Because I actually went and see this, I cut one side far too narrow. But that's fine. Because you just add on another piece to match it up if you need to match it up. Look, cut it too narrow. Perfectly fine. Now we're going to score again. No hairy side looks the same as the other side. They don't go to hairdressers and get their hair cut. Now I'm folding in parts before I put it on this time. You can do either or. When you get it on or before. Have it draping on the board. So we continue covering our cake. Make sure your centre line is still there. Just press it down every so often to make sure that it's on your buttercream. It's not going to slip off. You don't want to get halfway through and then, whoops, it's sliding off. I've done this before. I was making a bald eagle and I stuck all these hand-pieced feathers onto the bald eagle. Used too much water or edible glue. By the time I went outside, helped my daughter with something, I came back in and every single piece had slipped down and off the cake. So I just chuckled and says, well, it's my own fault, just start again. That was a while ago. Well, last year actually. So here we go, we're scoring more hairy fondant, as I call it. Take your piece, line it up to see where you want to put it. So it's up to yourselves where you put it, obviously. You don't have to follow this exactly. Anything goes. And you just keep going on with your scoring your fondant, marking it. Now you don't want to watch the whole of this part, marking the fondants. You can easily fast forward. But for any of us, it's not really done a lot of it. It's good to watch. There's my supply of my caramel fondant. Always keep it in a bag with a little zip on it, or tires, to keep it nice and soft and fresh. So rolling it out again. Mark it all. And you keep going, doing like this, covering the whole cake. And I'm covering a little part of the nose there. And patting it down, making sure it's secure. As I said, we're going to cover one eye. At this point, I've not decided what that I am covering, but I do cover one eye. Okay, so we've covered the whole of the cake. And now we're going to add in some lighter details. So I took some of the caramel and added some white, and this is the colour it came out with. And we keep adding it onto our cake. Like so. And this is making our fringe stand out a little bit more. So you just keep adding this on, and any other detail that you think you may need. Really, when it comes down to the details, we're all different. We all like some things and don't like others. There are different sizes of the fondant, the cream fondant, some in thicker parts, some in thinner parts. Anything you want. Look at the pattern of the cake, of the picture that you're following, and it should guide you what exactly you want to do. Okay, as promised, here is the way that I covered the wooden dowel with the fondant. So we take our dowel, and I'm using the marbled grey fondant. I've got Tylo powder in this fondant, not too much, don't want it cracking or anything like that. So roll it out, make sure it's nice and smooth and you've no cracks and you're quite happy with it. Now that should be fine. I'm making it longer than the rod because I want the edges to turn up at the sides. I mixed this colour with some white fondant and some black fondant, and it turned out into the grey fondant. But I didn't mix it too much because I wanted it to be a little bit marbled. Now we take our knife, we cut an incision the length of the wooden dowel, and then we prise it open with our fingers first, and then you can prise it open more with your small rolling pin or another tool if you want to use another tool. Just like so. It just makes it a bit flatter instead of being bumps. Do not go straight through the fondant. Now we take some edible glue or water and just wipe away any excess, because you really want the stick and fondant to stick together. So pinch the fondant back together, enclosing the wooden dowel. The wooden dowel is covered in food safe material. I always cover the wooden dowels as well with food safe material. So once we've pinched the fondant onto the dowel, we are going to roll it, so you can roll it, so make sure it all sticks on and it's all smooth. It's far easier to get a finish off the cake rather than on the cake. I've folded the ends back again and pressed them on, rolling them, making them smooth again, just to make the horn at the side stronger. With the Tylos, the edges of the horns that we're going to turn up slightly should firm up quite well and hold. You don't need any other sticks or anything to help hold this up. Okay, just doubly make sure that the fondant is sticking to that stick. You don't want it baggy and loose. So now we're started working on the pointy bits at the sides. Try not let your stick poke through when you bend them. Now we have to leave this to dry so the pointy bits can dry quite well before you add it onto your cake. As I said, I thought I had added this onto the video, for some reason had forgot. So once it is almost dry, you can place it on top of your cake. Doesn't take long to dry it. So I hope you all enjoyed this beginner's tutorial with a little bit of sculpting introduction. Please show me if you do manage to make the Highland cow or anything similar to the Highland cow. I'd love to see it. You can share it on the page. And if you need any assistance, just post a message on the page as well, and we can talk it through. This is our ears that we're doing here with the cream fondant. I'm just putting a rim round each ear, just to give it a little bit more depth and colour and shaping. I mean, you can keep adding things on till the cows come home. It's really up to yourselves what decoration you want to do. I've gave you the bases there. If you feel that it should have something more or something less, that's fine to do that as well. I do end up on my finished one putting some paint in his nose holes because they're usually darker, and a tongue just to make it a bit whimsical, but realistic at the same time. Because a lot of photos you do see the Highland cows with their tongues out. Also, I painted a little bit on his horns and a little bit on his nose. Again, just to give him some of the extra features. I also made the board green, so it looks a little bit like grass. I didn't go into depth into that. And then we put some daisies on the head, make it look cute, and on the board. And I ended up calling the cow Daisy. Here I'm just making sure I've got a sort of a lip beneath his nose. And I did cover the front of his mouth with the same colour fondant. I think it was slightly darker than his nose. It seemed to me to look better that way. Again, you can leave it with your caramel covered fondant, that's fine. Or you can add on some cream coloured fondant. So I do hope, as I said, you enjoyed this little demonstration. My videoing techniques and editing will get better, I am sure, as we go along. But it's not bad for a first go. And this is my finished version coming up now. As you can see, I've added in the tongue and some daisies and some extra markings. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again soon.